Bobbie Lingard with us tonight.
Yay!
A lot of new members, you may not know Bobbie, but she's been a member of our garden club for, I think, 24 years. She's very talented. She is a national garden club judge, and she has won many awards, many ribbons for her outstanding designs. Today, or tonight, she's going to create 3 diverse floral arrangements for us, which we are going to auction off at the end of the meeting, so stick around for that. She's also going to share some floral tips with us while she works her magic with the flowers.
Thank you for the introduction.
All right, so welcome back.
I'm glad to be back home with all of you. My husband and I spend the winters in Florida now, so unfortunately I'm not around for all the wonderful meetings that happen during the fall, winter, and spring season. But it's so nice to be back here. I can't tell you how much it means to be back with Garden Club and Flower Friends. They're the best, I think. I wanted to do 3 different diverse floral designs for you. And I also wanted to talk about how the flowers that we grow, that we see by the street side, or that we buy from grocery stores or florists, give us such pleasure. What is a flower? Strictly defined, it's the seed-bearing reproductive part of the plant. That doesn't sound very exciting, but flowers give us pleasure, not only to those of us who plant them, but for those of us who view them. They blossom in abundance, and they make us gasp with pleasure. The beauty of a flower is partly because they are ephemeral. They open quickly, sometimes in an unexpected place, at an unexpected time. And for me, that happens in my garden. Now I miss it because I'm in Florida, but it's when that first snowdrop opens up in the middle of winter, and it gives me hope that there's going to be the promise of better things to come. So that little snowdrop means an awful lot to me. Flowers are important because they help us express our emotions, especially at births, illnesses, or death, weddings, birthdays, or anniversaries. They also give us an opportunity to express our creativity and artistic efforts, particularly in the flower show world. That's what I love to do with them. Flowers, whether they're wildflowers that surround us or those that we plant, mesmerize our senses. Our lives are enriched and enhanced by their scents, their color, and their velvety textures. Their translucent colors seduce our sight. Their velvet petals activate our sense of touch. Their presence in food excites our taste. And their elusive sense beguiles our sense of smell. Hans Christian Andersen said, "Just living is not enough. We must have sunshine, freedom, and a little flower." So for those of us who garden, it's a vehicle for our preserving our memories. The beauty that can sometimes shock and startle us. Think about a caladium lily who might pop up and unfurl, blooming in an unforgotten space. In my yard, I have a Casablanca lily that I don't know how it does it, but it moves from spot to spot in the yard. Not every year will it open up, but all of a sudden I'll be walking around the yard and I'll sense this most luscious smell, and I know it's the lily that opened up its bloom and shares it with all of us. It's a wonderful, wonderful, special moment. And then we have to remember that flowers also have healing powers. The herb gardens with their medicinal plants. Patients in hospital rooms need less medication for pain if they have flowers in their rooms. They're less anxious, and they have lower blood pressure, and their pulse rates are lower or higher, whichever is the preferred method.
Lower.
But,
Normal.
right, normal, thank you. Except
Or better.
for patients without flowers in their rooms, they don't benefit nearly as much. And research in Tokyo shows immeasurable beneficial effects from observing roses for just as little as 4 minutes. So I'm using roses tonight, so you should all feel better, because I'll be talking for more than 4 minutes. But also, and I know we all know this, gifts of flowers also improve the memory of older people, and women who are given flowers reportedly retain a more positive mood 3 days later.
Always true for me.
Remember, I'll call you in 3 days, see how you're doing. I wanted to talk just briefly about something I was able to bring from my garden. Everything else was impossible to condition foliage. I didn't have anything in bloom that was worth picking. But I do have the seed pods from my Siberian iris. This is Caesar's brother, a beautiful purple flower that's been around for hundreds of years. I think it's one of the early Siberian iris. And the pods contain the seeds. Yep, here's a couple more coming out. And, but sprayed gold. They make a wonderful addition for flower arrangement or for holiday wreaths.
Yeah.
So I only cut a few, but I've got a whole big swath of them. So if anybody wants
I'll come by.
some, come cut. And I've got a can of spray paint in gold that I haven't finished using. But let's talk about what I'm going to share with you for designs. I wanted to do 3 very different presentations for you. The first is, this is a very simple plastic container that is about 8 inches square. And I wanted to create a structure that will hold flowers that also has its own interest. So this is bamboo that was available at Michael's. You can get the tall poles. And I had my husband cut 4 identical lengths. And actually, bamboo is sort of interesting because you know how you have these nodes? They actually create a barrier. So in another use, this bamboo would serve as a little vase, or sections of them you could almost consider as test tubes. So this is an interesting offer that this plant gives us.
Some are deeper than others, aren't they?
Right, it depends on the variety of the plant and its maturity. And the very narrow, the younger bamboo still has the same thing. Equisetum, which is horsetail, which is a bog plant. Florists use it a lot. It has the same structural barriers within its stem that also have the hollow areas that you can use for retaining water. And florists will use that. It's very, very narrow. And they'll use that as natural test tubes in contemporary floral designs. Then I tie this grid arrangement with what's called bark wire. This is a material that's offered by Oasis, Smithers Oasis, and it's made probably by some, wonderful woman in the Philippines, because it's wire and then fresh bark is just rolled around it, continuously, but it really has a nice rustic feel to it. So after a lot of experimenting, I managed to tie these together, and I used a little bit of the favorite new mechanic of florists called U-glue dashes. And this material is an adhesive that was originally developed by 3M, and it's similar to the little stickum you have when you get a new credit card in the mail and it's stuck to the piece of paper. And it's this gummy thing, right? So that, but still has an adhesive quality. And I actually looked online to see where it's available for those of you who don't have an account with a wholesale florist. And Amazon was selling it actually for the same price that I was able to get it at a wholesaler, for like $36. So I thought that was really, really great. So I'm just using 4 of these dashes to secure the structure. If not that it will keep it permanently, but it just keeps it from slipping around, and in no particular order am I adhering it. But it's just, somebody has to bring this home, so it just will keep things a little secure. Now, this mechanic is all I'm going to use to hold the flowers that I put in here. Have very, see, that's great stuff. It's great stuff. And also,
Can you
want to
reuse it?
Huh?
Can you reuse that?
No, just a little tiny dab.
Okay.
And you get 1,000 pieces in a box, so. I'm still working on my first box. And, but one of the tricks is if you want to use only half a little square, you use titanium scissors, which are available at Michael's. So when they have their 20 or 25% off per item thing, that's when you want to buy them. So, I'm not going to add water to this because again, it will just be messy for someone to take home. But you can certainly put water in here. And then, what I'd like to use are sunflowers. They're sturdy little buggers. And I'm only going to use short pieces. Here, I get a second one. Now, the flowers, now this one's beginning to shed. I bought all the flowers at Windfall Market in Falmouth. They got their delivery on Monday, which was really pretty lucky. And I was very pleased. But even they have problems with some of their plant material. And so some of the stuff I bought is shattering. And I think 3 will be nice. Now again, if you were using different plant material, you could put a pin holder in the center, and it would work well. But I think this is just pretty attractive the way it is.
Simple and beautiful. So,
Isn't that great?
Yes.
But you could use other flowers, and it would work really well. You could add foliage. None in there. And this is teepee fern, but it's been trimmed by the wholesaler, probably because the tips were sort of yucky. container and mechanic, the container is the black plastic and the mechanic is the bamboo, is a really nice arrangement that doesn't use a lot of flowers, but would be so attractive on a cocktail table. You want to look down on it. And just think it's something really nice. So it's something all of you can do the same thing. You can get your bamboo. You don't have to use bark wire, but you could use maybe coarse twine to tie it to get that sort of bold, rugged look. And then use a low bowl. The contrast, I think, of the black container and the black centers of the sunflowers work really well. But this is, so there you go, there's the one. Something with lots of flowers.
Oh, Sally's design.
And I'll do it backwards, but I don't want any critiques from the audience. Oh, good, yeah, that's good, thank you. So I did manage to cut foliage from my yard, from my Wigelia plant, wine and roses, and thank goodness something, because, I mean, the other stuff wouldn't even condition. It was really frustrating. I have a beautiful variegated forsythia called Fiesta, and you know, it's got a lot of yellow, and I won't even show it to you because it really just looks awful. And it just, it's all crunchy, you know, it just, and even some foliage I bought at the flower market, at the grocery store, it too just, you know, was not doing well. So, you know, the supply zone, the supplies that the florists are using from Ecuador and Colombia and all of that, foliage comes often from Florida, which is having a drought right now too. This is normally the rainy season down there, and they haven't had any rain. So it's been a difficult year all over the place. And then, of course, then you have the heavy, heavy storms with Puerto Rico. 2 feet of rain. Oh my gosh, those poor people. So strange, strange weather. So what I'm going to do in terms of this container, which has Oasis soaked in it, and the Oasis is taped, so it's transportable. I actually have a smaller block underneath it because the size of the container, the depth required more, and I wanted a little bit sticking up on top, but not an excessive amount.
That container is oval.
It is, yeah.
So,
It's a great container.
can you explain how you chose the size that you're looking at?
Right, so what I want to do, this is the oval of the container. So my idea for the design is to again do an oval for the top as opposed to a circle. So the long arms and the front and the back will be short. Then, unlike a traditional mass floral design where you would have a tall structure, maybe with a triangular profile, I'm going to keep this low because I feel it reflects the container itself. And also, in doing so, keeping it narrow and low, I have bold flowers, so that will give it the strength it needs, but I won't need to use as much plant material as a tall design. And so I'll have lots left over for a couple of bouquets. So, yeah,
You mentioned conditioning the flowers. What does that mean?
When flowers coming from the floral growers, they're shipped, except for a couple of very different circumstances. So, okay, so now here, you see how I didn't add extra water, so I don't think anything's gonna fall. But you see I've started to create that oval shape.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll work. And so anyway, they're shipped dry. Isn't that amazing? Packed in boxes.
Are they cold? Maybe.
A little bit, well, it depends the time of year too. And so so what you have to do, what the florist does at the grocery store where I purchased these, she had taken the flowers, cut the stem to expose new cells that had not dried, and then put them immediately in water that I assume she used the plant food that you get, the little packages, well, they get, big boxes of it. But that also helps so the plant immediately sucks up this nourishment. And if you leave it in there for probably a good 3 or 4 hours at a good room temperature, then the flowers will come back. Like these sunflowers were all droopy when I picked them up. I mean, they weren't dead, because I wouldn't have bought them if they were, but they did condition well. The roses, the same, they were not as opened as they are now, but they did respond well to the water. The other thing, especially with roses, the important thing to do during this conditioning time is to cut the stem underwater, because roses particularly will create a bubble, and often they will block water from going up the stem. But if you cut them underwater, then that surge will draw the water to it, so it works much better. Now, let's see. These are really interesting, by the way. This cultivar from Colombia is called a bicolor, I think it was bubblegum, or cotton candy. But you notice that this is a white rose, and it has yellow in it and also orange. This is tinted. These are not the colors other than the white are not the true colors of this rose. And so in a flower show, we would not be permitted to use this rose because we do not treat fresh plant material. We can treat dried plant material out the kazoos, paint it, do all sorts of crazy stuff. But you'll also see sunflowers, some of the ones that are really, really rosy red. There are some cultivars that are that color, but a lot of them that you see available commercially are dyed. And how would you ever dye something to get 3 colors? Well, I didn't see any evidence of this. But what they do in the growing area is they will cut the stem into 3 sections. They'll take a bunch of them and separate the, one group of stems, the other group, and the third group, and then they'll put them in dye. So these were in plain water to keep the white, orange dye, and yellow dye.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, they got a lot of money for this too. But these are very trendy. If you've seen orchids, that are bright blue, those are dyed as well. It's like, oh, what a terrible thing to do to a beautiful flower. But these, these aren't
But they look
an
real.
alarming combination of colors.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
But some of the others, so when I looked up online to try to figure out, what, how this was created, some of the color combinations, I mean, they had very bad taste, I think. So I have a loose oval, right? And then we'll add a few more of these, and then we'll add some other stuff. Now, I don't know if you got your handout. Did you get that?
Yes.
Part of the other things I wanted to talk about too is, I just thought it was so interesting. When I was doing some research and I wanted to find out how other people or authors looked at flowers and their expressions. And so that the other stuff I was talking about were thoughts by other authors. And then I also came upon I'm going to brutalize this, floriography. I can't say it. The language of flowers. Thank you.
Google it.
Floriography.
Thank you.
That sounds good.
It sounds good to me too. And it was just so interesting. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The earth laughs in flowers." And so we know the red rose is love, right? And and then
Sorry, Nora.
the silver dollar plant, Lunera, or the money plant. It's named because of the transparency of its seed pods. Anthurium, which we know as the snapdragon. Its name conveys the assertiveness of the flower and its resemblance to the face of a dragon that opens and closes its mouth when the flower is squeezed sideways. It's really sort of cool stuff. The daisy was inspired by Wordsworth as the poet's darling. The daisy is from the day's eye, reflecting the eye of the day, the sun itself, its gold center, and rays of petals, and the eye that opens at dawn and closes at dusk. Just really the history, because the names, these common names of flowers are things that have been with us from all around the whole world. It's really interesting. Now we've got a different collection of mums. These are spray mums. And I don't know, we all buy these, they're really relatively inexpensive. And have you ever noticed that in the inside of the spray, the center, what appears to have been the first flower that opened up, has been cut off?
Yes.
And so that was done by the grower in order to encourage development of the side shoots, and like we do when we pinch our flowers back. And
Interesting.
just interesting. And in that same regard, So I don't lose my train of thought. Just did. Oh, well. I always say if it comes back in 24 hours, it's not bad. Okay. And the other, I thought, this was so fascinating. The Germans had a folk tale, and in it, a knight and his lady love were walking along a river. He knelt to pick a bunch of small blue flowers to give to his love. Then he slipped, fell in the water, and was drowning.
Oh dear.
But at that moment, he threw the flowers to his beloved and cried to her. Now I'm going to brutalize this because I don't really speak German well. Vergiss meine. And that's its name in German. But Coleridge transplanted the name to England as the forget-me-not. Isn't that charming?
So he dies?
He died. He died.
She catches the flowers and lets it go.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what she did, but she probably did make I put a lot of other comments that I, saw about flowers, names, and all. But the other one I thought was so interesting was the Japanese names for flowers and how their language of flowers was eloquently precise. To them, the amaryllis is shy. The red camellia is dying with grace. Their Japanese white egret orchid, my thoughts will follow you into your dreams. The lotus, far from the one he loves. And the cherry blossom, Japanese cherry blossoms, represents transience or lasting only a short time, which, the cherry blossoms, they're so beautiful. We have in our garden, we have a Kwanzaa cherry tree, and it's been there since we first planted flowers around the house, which is a 1920 Gamble Colonial in Grey Gables. And when my husband and I took the house over from my parents' estate, all that was there was sort of a ratty lawn and 3 cedar trees. So if any of you have been there to see my garden, well, that's not, it looks not that great now because of the weather.
Nobody's does. Nobody's does.
But it's so nice to be able to have added so many wonderful flowers and things for it. And that cherry tree, when we went to Florida, we put in cameras inside the house so we could see what was going on outside. So I can still see the spring, because my garden is planted for the spring. So I can still see what's going on there through the cameras. And when that cherry tree is in bloom, it's huge and old now. The base is like this. And it's just so magnificent. But just as wonderful is when the flowers collapse to the ground and create this beautiful pink carpet. I just love it so much. We're so lucky to have such a diverse group of plants that we can enjoy in our gardens. Now, let's see how we do here. Getting there? It's not too bad, is it? No. I'm just fishing for compliments, So now this is an interesting piece of plant material that you can get commercially, but it's also St. John's wort, which you can grow here. I've never grown it in my own yard, and I've never ever seen what we can grow locally. as looking as interesting as here.
It
So,
won't. It's a different variety.
who really knows?
It's a different variety. It won't,
Yeah.
we'll never get berries like that on
No.
some-
Never,
No.
never.
No.
Right. But I find it just a wonderful addition for floral designs. Because what it does, I'll give you a little lesson as a flower show judge. What makes a good design is to have a variety of textures, forms, colors. And so the roughness of the spray mums, the velvetiness of the petals, but they're all round forms. So having the berries from the hypericum as a cluster flower gives a different form, and hopefully, see, now that one's shattering. Isn't that terrible? That's someone was talking about flowers that they buy, not lasting. And what you really need to do, if you're buying from a florist or even a grocery store, this is shattering too, is find out when they got their delivery, and was it sitting in the box and never, being conditioned right away in water, because you're going to be paying good money and it's going to shatter. But if you go to a reputable florist, look at, see, it's shattering. Yeah. But that's why I always buy 2 bunches. But, when you buy from a florist, it's not inexpensive. So ask, how old is the plant material? If you see something on sale, beware.
Yeah.
They had some beautiful mums there. And I said, oh, those would be great. But as soon as I picked them up, they started to shatter. So, but a good florist, Winfrol has a nice florist, but if you develop a relationship with a real florist, and who was it that just closed their shop?
Little
Bells.
Little Bells. What a shame, because,
She treated us well.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And, and for her, she wanted to have a good relationship with you because it would, she would be the one that you would call to have flowers sent to someone and, that sort of a thing. So now what I'm doing is just taking my foliage and just filling in a few places with, because I don't want to overdo it in terms of covering the oasis, but because you want that looseness that you get in a floral design. But I don't want a big glob of oasis staring at you either. But this is something you should also know. In a flower show, as a judge, other than the little tiny petite designs that are only 5 inches tall, 8 inches tall, standard flower designs, we're supposed to stand 3 feet away. So you can get away with a lot.
Don't tell, don't give it away. It's like-
And I can say that because I'm not just the judge, I'm an exhibitor. So what do you think? How's that? So now, this little thing, that's a story to tell.
It's cute.
I wanted to do something different. And this is what is, I would call an artistic craft, which we have a whole section of those in the flower show. And I had birch bark at home. This is something that you can buy online from SaveOnCrafts.com, a company in California, all kinds of bark and tree things. It's really in now. And I love the back color of it. So on a larger piece, I dried it in a circle, and then as I was gluing the ends together, I smushed it together, and then added these branches tied with the bark wire, and created a handbag.
Do you soak your bark before you manipulate?
Oh yeah, it was in the kitchen sink. I told my husband no bacon and eggs that morning. But,
How
and
long
then,
do you think? How long did you soak it?
Overnight?
oh, it was like all day.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and then, I mean,
So
this
no
was,
lunch or dinner either.
yeah, there you go. And then, I mean, there's a lot of mechanics going on here, because then, of course, it wouldn't stand up. And I have another piece of bark on the bottom that goes up into the design, into the oval container. And then, you know, what do we put flowers in? So I have a little bag in here and a tiny piece of oasis. But also flowers could just be in a little bit of water in the plastic bag. But I just thought that was so cool.
So cute.
The cute is okay too. So,
Two seats, cute.
so anyway, so I'm just going to do a little bit of, I mean, you could do all sorts of things in here.
I love the color of those.
But I thought, you know, the orange of the bark and even the branch is,
How is that attached, Bobbie?
it just rammed down in there.
Just
And
checking.
I mean, I wouldn't
I was wondering if there was any
walk around and carry
scientific
this like
manner.
a handbag, you know? But I mean, whatever you do with it when I'm not around, I guess I can't help it, you know? But, you know, any kind of flowers would be pretty here. Even a few short pieces of orchid, wouldn't that be nice? And
Some curiosities
I
for my
have
garden.
one orchid that Harriet Place babysat for me while I was in Florida. She's a wonderful woman, and she brought it back to me in full bloom.
Oh,
And I know it would never have done that for me.
yeah.
So, but I love all of you, but I even was not gonna cut that off to do this design.
Thank goodness now.
And see how this goes. And then this is where I wanted to use some of these, because I thought the gold in the iris pods really speak to the coloring of the birch, that side of the birch.
It makes it pop.
So Bobbie, can I ask you,
Yeah,
now you planned to do your container, and so you made it. How do you think about your flowers? Do you just go to the market and see what's available? Do you
well,
kind of
I don't have a wholesale account anymore, so I'm at the mercy of what is out there, just the way the rest of you are now too. And you know, and for something like this, it's really, it doesn't really matter what the flower is. It's the size of the flower that matters.
So it's proportional to the,
Design in the container, because like, that's like way too big.
Yes.
You know, or you could do that and make a dramatic statement. That's okay too. Do you want me to put one in the middle?
No.
Is that to you? Well, no, because some lucky person here, you know, like they say in the quiz shows. But it's more the selection of color, size, the shape, and,
I have an obvious question.
yeah,
When you cut a flower with a short stem,
right?
are you automatically saying that this won't last very long, this will only last a day or so? Because
No,
No.
it has just as much access to the water,
yeah,
and actually sometimes a longer stem
yeah,
might be more difficult for a flower to achieve full hydration, especially if it's, you know, a little on the tired side.
yeah.
So, and
Thank
it's,
you.
what I call floral design anyway is, to me, it's 3-day art. I don't expect it to last a long time, and, oops, here's, I think what we would see as a St. John's wort.
Yeah.
It's like dead brown. Right. But it's the joy that it brings you at the moment. It's ephemeral, you know. So. And with the other colors. Oh, here we go. See how these are. But again, think about the bamboo structure. That bamboo created a very bold statement. And it was, you know, chubby, strong, assertive. And so, for a successful design there, I don't think the spray monks would have done it. So that's why the sunflower works so well. And in this container, because I wasn't going to do a large design, I mean, these roses are a little big, but I also like the fact that the container is strong, it's pottery, it's not porcelain, it's not lightweight, it's not graceful. It's so, with the strong foliage, even these mums have a statement to make, and the Hypericum as a group do as well. So these bold, strong forms, I think, respect what the container is saying. And so that's why, for the little handbag, the small forms as well as the bright colors, I think, are important. You know, the yellow in here, yellow is the most advancing color, and so that's why it works here to capture your eye, here to capture your eye, and down there to capture your eye, as opposed to if this design were all the maroon shades. So that's something, because, there. What do you think?
On that one, if you were a judge, yes,
Yeah.
and it was in a show,
Yeah,
could it be characterized as the container is too large for the display?
well,
It would depend on the category.
right.
Okay.
And so if this was an artistic craft, and so the assignment was to create some kind of handbag or a personal accessory, then as a judge, of course, I think it's perfect.
I do too.
Good answer.
I do too, that's why I was looking for the explanation.
But in a positive way, the bright colors and bold forms of the floral groupings balance the more muted tone of the purse. It the purse itself, it's not like it's a white handbag. It's not like white woven wicker. The color of the handle, the branches, and the birch bark are more muted tones, and so the brightness of the flowers balance that. So that's what I'd say about it.
Good.
And I give
So
them
that's
all.
looking forward to.
So if I meet a judge and shows you all the
What kind of branch did you use for the handle?
Oh, that's a story.
Because it looks pretty sturdy, but you would have had to bend it.
Well, I did soak it,
Yeah.
but the branch itself came from the jungles of Costa Rica, and not that I went. And it was made, again, that wholesaler that, I don't know if any of you have been up to Jacobson's in Boston. Great place, oh my gosh. Several years ago, they used to have many more baskets, unusual ones, or wreaths, unusual ones, than they do now. And so this was the handle of a basket, but it was much more contorted. And so I bought 3 of them, because why would you not, you know, if you could buy 3, why would you wait and just get 1? And and then I keep them. So
Just for
I
this
dole
purpose.
it out carefully, only to friends. So,
Thank you very much for that, then.
You're
That's a
welcome.
real honor.
But, so, that's the other thing, when you become really committed to being a floral designer, and as a judge of floral designs, you're required to exhibit many times. And so your exhibiting takes as much time, and maybe if not more, in your profession as a volunteer judge, than the actual judging assignment that you might have. And so what you do is you start to accumulate. Now, I started Flower Show School in 1998 with Cindy Bush, who was the president of this club at the time. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. But, you know, I called it in adversity, we had, you know, friendship develops. And so, so that's a long time ago. And so, much to my husband's chagrin, I just kept on accumulating. And, you know, I don't have kids, and we have a big boat. So he never really had any grounds to complain. And I like the boat too. That's, you know, I don't begrudge him that. But the only problem is now, you know, he's retired. And I have to say, I was saying this to someone, he's never happier than when he's got the back of our Volvo wagon filled with stuff to go to the dump.
From your garage.
It's awful. I mean, it really is awful. And I really can't trust him outside in the garage. It's, you know, or in the garden. I was telling someone I had some beautiful winterberry along the fence on the road. And it, you know, I read it right across the way, it has a male stud, so it has the berries. And we put in a new fence a few years ago. And God forbid that the edge of the branch was touching the fence, you know. And so he goes out there, and actually I'm glad when he's gone during the day, you know, he's out there. I mean, you know, when you have your spouse at home, you need your own space, right?
Yeah.
So,
Land single.
so he comes back in, I said, oh, hi, honey, what did you do? He said, well, that shrub out there, it's touching the fence, so I cut it back. So,
That would be good.
what would you have done? Okay, here's the touching the fence. I would have cut this back to a node, right?
Right.
Oh, no.
I know.
And he
It's
looks,
gotta grow, so, you know.
Sharp tools.
And there's no berries now.
no, well, at the top, because, you know, they're up here now. And, I mean, they're lush and they're beautiful. So,
Now
you
we
know,
know
I'm
where
not
to get
gonna
our
let it
berries
touch
dyed.
anymore. And actually, and this is actually sort of cool. Now, they're probably not the cultivated berries. They're probably the basic rootstock. But there are all these shoots coming up around the base of the plant. They're like about this tall now. And at first I thought, oh my goodness, it's bittersweet. But then I checked the shape of the leaf, and it's similar, very similar to the leaf. And it's like, yes.
Yeah, they're colonizers, so those are babies.
Yeah. You know, at first they looked like, you know, bittersweet. And I thought, like, I'm gonna get the better of it. So anyway, but, you know, marriage is a partnership. So anyway, so what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm doing a little trimming, and I'm creating the bouquets that we'll have for you here too. I'll probably make a couple so that you can, you know, mess around with these at home. The only thing I'd say is, remember, I bought these Monday, and so, you know, they all have a shorter life.
Yes.
But, you know, like I always say about floral design, it's a 3-day art. So, enjoy them for 3 days. So, there we go, we can do the auction.